Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of Sage Insanity, where we do a whole lot of cleansing and are returning to a semblance of sanity in our lives. And I am super excited about this topic. I have been reading a book, this book right here, Witchcraft, A History of 13 Trials, and it's by Marian Gibson. Highly recommend for anybody who wants to know the truth of what happened during the witch trials. I'm only partway through the book, but it's already so inspiring and has put a fire underneath me that I just had to talk about. And there's been a lot of other things that have come up, like I've been watching the show Wednesday, and there's an episode in there where they burn an entire barn full of witches. And I just felt so enraged watching that, especially because I've been reading this book and really seeing, probably for the first time, what actually happened. So I kind of want to talk about this. And this podcast is entitled They Didn't Burn Witches, They Burned Women. And I think for me, the biggest strain that I am finding in this book is women pretty much were universally accused and executed in the witch trials. There was some men, but it was very rare. And it all stems from a deep distrust of women that started with Eve. And I've mentioned this a little bit on my Facebook, but I kind of wanted to read some quotes from this book. So there was this witch hunter who wrote this book called Malleus Maleficarum. It's a manual for future witch hunters. And in there, I'll read this as a direct quote from the book. This book is a compendium of false logic, cruelty, and misogyny. Heinrich, he's the inquisitor who wrote this book, presents women as becoming witches because they are like children, foolish, full of irregular desires and passions, and obsessed with filthy carnal acts. The first woman, Eve, was twisted and contrary, so to speak, to man, he asserted. Accordingly, women are lying in speech, bitter and dangerous to men, and governed by carnal lustings, which is insatiable in them. And there was also another quote. Witch hunting was well established in the southern section of Denmark, Norway in 1589. The first documented witch executions were in 1540 in Denmark, just as in Austria. The impetus to prosecute witches had gained ground as demonology spread. Godly people should hunt witches down like wolves, as the Danish bishop Peter Palladius wrote in the 1530s. Yeah. There's just so much, and this book has just really fired me up. And one of the things that they also talked about, and this is a direct quote from the book, this was exactly how demonologists wanted suspects to describe witchcraft, the binary opposite of everything good. And they had described a situation where these women had been forced into a false confession, and they had confessed all these ridiculous, crazy things like being with Satan in person and having this whole like satanic ritual in a church and all these things like that. And I have been on a more magical journey with my spirituality, and I have been super fired up with this topic because women have been just demonized for literally forever since Eve took a bite of the apple, according to the Bible. And there, the death of women from just stupid, just uneducated malice is insane to me. Like, there was countless women who were burned at the stake or hanged or drowned just because they were accused of witchcraft, or because maybe they were a little bit different. One of the supposed accused witches in this story, her incantations were like part of the Apostles' Creed and involved a bunch of Jesus, but because Scotland at the time had went from Catholic to Protestant, anything that was Catholic was also considered in congruence with witchcraft. And I think that there's just a lot of misunderstandings about what witchcraft actually is, and the people who practice more of a magical path, what that looks like. And I'm sure that there are people who practice ugly or not good things, just like there can be in any religion. But the fact that historically it has been women that have been targeted and treated badly and in many cases killed for just being different in thought and mentality and practice is insane to me. So I just really wanted to get on here and talk about that because with everything that is going on in our culture right now, there's just a lot of fear continually around women, her body, everything like that. And I kind of wanted to leave this podcast with just kind of a word of admonishment, probably isn't the right word, but just a call to arms for people who actually have a say. Unfortunately, in our country, I'll just speak from our country, white men have the most say. And women don't really have a voice. I mean, when they overturned Roe v. Wade, I never thought in my lifetime that that would happen. But it was just another confirmation that this hatred and just misunderstanding of women is just so deeply rooted. And I was talking with my therapist about this the other day, and I was just getting really fired up because women have historically been treated than less than. Women are not less than, they are more than. Women create life. Men cannot create life without a woman. We are the ones who grow humans literally in our bodies, and even all these men who are so hateful towards women could not have come into existence without their mother. So if you can't tell, I'm very passionate about this topic, but I wanted to read a quote from the first witch trial that I read, where this girl, she and all the others accused of witchcraft were actually like acquitted or set free, and it was because the inquisitor was asking her a question about her virginity, like whether she was a virgin when she got married to her husband, and she refused to answer him, and that kind of turned the scales in the trial. But also a big part of why she was able to be acquitted and be freed, and the other women, was because of this, and this is a direct quote from the book. The woman's husbands, sons, and male friends stood by them. These allies saved the women who could not otherwise have saved themselves by their own agency, but their own agency was crucial nonetheless. So it's not one or the other, it's both and. I think it is important for women to have their own voice, their own autonomy, but because we do not have the most powerful voice in this country, it is so important for people who are in power, for white men in particular, to stand up for us women and to say, no, this is not okay. And I'm just honestly really fired up about this topic too, because everything that's going on in our country right now and a move and shift towards like theocracy and like fundamentalism and all this stuff like that, and all of that encourages this mentality that women are less than, that they are only allowed to be in a certain role, and if they step outside that role, then they're evil and wicked and all this stuff like that. And the same thing would not be said about men, and that's what just gets me so much. So I can't wait to see more of what I've learned. There's going to be more that I'm going to share about this topic. I am very much a proud feminist. And this hits home to me too as an eclectic witch, because like I feel for my ancestors and my past sisters who were burned at the stake for nothing. It was literally pointless. And it is so heartbreaking to me that women were just brutally murdered and tortured. I mean, one of the things talks about like some other types of abuse that they did to the women, and I won't even mention it here because it can be kind of triggering, but I think we can kind of get the drift of that. And so it's like, if you're accusing women of these wickedness and this horrible acts, but you're using them and being horrible to them. Like, how are you any quote unquote better? And it's just like completely mind boggling to me that for centuries, literally centuries, that they were able to do this to women. I was watching a reel today about this woman in, I think it was Pennsylvania, who was put in a river to drown, and she sank to the bottom, which proved she wasn't a witch, but they couldn't save her and she ended up dying. And still to this day, this was hundreds of years ago, women do a witch walk to remember her. And I think that is beautiful, and I want to honor these women. I want to dedicate this podcast to all the beautiful women and magical women that we lost from hatred and misunderstanding and just hypocrisy. It was wrong then, it's wrong now. It is never okay and will never be okay. So anyhow, there's going to be more to come with this, but I just wanted to start with this. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, Love and Light.